To start talking about Electro Pop drums, let's first talk about drum machines. You might think you know about all of Reason's drum machines, but did you know that Reason also comes with a secret drum machine? This hidden drum machine has an integrated waveform editor, intuitive sample layering, beat slicing and juggling capability, and it automatically wires each individual drum to a separate mix channel for pro mix techniques. I'm talking about my favorite drum machine in Reason. And it's not in the rack, it's in the sequencer. Actually, it is the sequencer. Normally, we do things like drag samples onto Kong pads, and then draw MIDI notes into the sequencer to trigger those samples. But what if we cut out the middleman, and drugged those same samples into the sequencer, and arranged them like MIDI notes? Not only is it more visually clear, there's some distinct advantages I'll be going through in this tutorial. Now, this certainly doesn't mean that Reason's drum machines are all obsolete, but follow along with me today on an alternate way you might not have considered working. We'll start with our kick drum. Even at this initial stage, I want to be mindful of the final mix when I'm selecting my sounds. Pop song mixes are incredibly dense in the mid-frequencies between synths, guitars, melody hooks, and vocals. So the best way for our drums to not get lost is to use impactful sounds that fill in the lows and the highs around the song. I'm going to build my drum loop by switching to blocks view because it will let me build a 4-measure loop and easily repeat it throughout my song. My favorite kick drums in the factory sound bank for Electro Pop are the signature samples from Cherooz. I'll go to the bass drums folder in our Kong Patches Sounds and Samples, and for the sake of zeroing in, I'll type SHA into the search bar to filter this folder down to only Cherooz's contributions. I love his Doofer bass drum because it has a good attack, good low end, and it's heavily compressed for maximum impact. So I'll drag that into the sequencer on the first beat of the loop. If we want that low end to be even lower, we can simply transpose our audio in the sequencer. That's already hitting hard, but to get even more impact and low end out of our kick, I'm going to layer a few samples together. Let's add another layer by simply dragging Cherooz's hard kick into the sequencer to add another audio track. If you're following along at home, turn down the mixer's main fader because otherwise, stacking loud sounds like this will sound distorted. Working directly in the sequencer means I'm able to directly manipulate samples. For example, I can adjust the volume between my kick drum layers, or to shorten the decay of a drum, I can just shorten its clip length and apply a little fade. We've covered the low end, now let's add one more layer to help our kick drum cut in our mix. We'll drag in Cherooz's BD full sample, which has lots of transient attack. Remember back when we thought Doofer was heavy hitting? If I solo it now, it sounds anemic by comparison. And that sort of over-the-top sonic assault is what pop mixes need. Let's make sure our snap grid is on and set to 1/4 note, and let's duplicate our kick to every beat of the first measure. Now, snare drums. Let's back out of the bass drums folder and open the snare drums folder. We're looking again for totally in-your-face compressed sounds. I happen to know of one such sound called Big Clap by the Salazar Brothers, so we'll drag that to beat 2. And just like we did with our kick drum layers, let's augment this sample with a little classic 909 style clap. We'll go to the claps folder and drag in the Bomb Squad's 99 clap on top. One of the things I love about this sequencer approach to beat making is that we can actually design sounds which precede the beat. Let me show you what I mean. You see, a clap is the sound of two human hands clumsily crashing into each other. It's not precise or neat. So to bring this human element to our beat, let's grab a sample that has a more realistic clap, like bling, and let's drag that over top of our big clap sample. I know you're thinking that we won't hear both samples if they occupy the same space on the same track, but next, let's turn off snap and drag our bling sample back before the beat just a little bit. You'll notice as we do this that it drops behind our big clap sample. If we now duplicate our claps to the 4th beat, can you hear it? Here it is off. And now on. It may not sound like much, but I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference in how our claps cut through the mix and actually make people want to clap along. Another advantage of working in the sequencer is that we can color code our drum sections. Kicks are orange, and now claps are blue. And now that we have our claps in place, let's actually turn down the kicks that occur underneath the claps, so that we get less of a club-style 4 on the floor sound and more of a boom-clap vibe. I'll lasso all the kicks under the claps and adjust the clip handle to turn them down. Even turned down, the low-end kicks still reinforce our backbeat, but if you weren't listening for them, it sounds more like they're not there at all. Oh, but they're there. If we mute them, you miss them, don't you? I'll back out of the claps folder in the browser and go to the cymbals instead. Let's first get a very high-end sizzle sound, like the ride sample Slim, courtesy of EDM masters Adam Beyer and Carrie Lakebush. You can see that our sample dies out before we reach the next beat. Yet again, thanks to working directly in the sequencer, I can hold down the Option key and time stretch my sample to play throughout the beat. Let's also turn it down pretty substantially so it's just a background sizzle and not a feature. And then copy it to every beat. Sounds good. Now, hi-hats. I'll set my snap value to 1/16 and drag in a hi-hat sample with lots of top end like the Salazar Brothers Chak. I'll position it directly on the upbeat. Now let's drag in one of their other samples, Box, and place it on the spot just after the upbeat. And we'll duplicate those two clips to every beat. It's cool, but all of these hi-hats have kind of killed our backbeat vibe. It's almost back to feeling like a club beat. So what I'll do is select the second and fourth clips of our 16th note hi-hat track and delete them. Hey, there's our pop beat again. For the purposes of visual organization, let's make our top end elements their own color. We're nearly there, but not only do we need to think about fighting for space in the mix's frequency spectrum, but we should also consider the stereo spectrum as well. One way to help our hi-hat upbeats not get buried by melody lines, vocals, or anything that's occupying the center spot in our mix is to proactively position them in the far ends of our stereo spectrum. In the mixer, I'll pan the channel with my upbeat hi-hats hard left. Now, we need a right side sound to go with our left side check. Let's drag another Salazar Brothers sample, Machine, into the sequencer. By the height of the waveform alone, we can already see that this sample is quieter than our Chak sample. So let's push the volume, then pan this new channel hard right in the mixer, duplicate it, and set our track color to match our other hi-hats. We've completed one full measure. Now let's make our beat 4 bars long by lassoing all the clips, setting our snap value to bar, and option dragging to duplicate until we have 4 measures. On the last time through the beat, I'll delete these hi-hats, and in their place, I'll drag in Praise You from the Red Drum Samples folder for a little turnaround. And that's our beat. But I bet you're wondering how it sounds in a full pop song. Well, not one to disappoint. Let's switch back to Song View and drag our block into this song I've made. Because we made mindful decisions about low frequencies, high frequencies, and stereo panning, we still have space in the mid frequencies, if we were to, for example, bring in a melody line. Working in the sequencer like this means that every sound has its own mix channel. If you want to employ pro mixing techniques like parallel processing on a particular drum, you just can. I could go on about other advantages like fader grouping, channel dynamics, the ease of bouncing stems, and so on. But hopefully you can already see why the sequencer plus blocks is my favorite drum machine in Reason. And hopefully you've gotten inspired to make some of your own pop music. It's feel-good music that will actually sharpen your skills. You show me a good pop music producer, and I'll show you a good all-around producer. Good luck, and I'll see you back here with another tutorial.